Hello, welcome to the Jon and Lebo show. John Sokoloff here with Alex Lebowitz. Lots to cover today. Based on the recent NBA trade of Chris Paul going to the Houston Rockets and everything else in the NBA, Phil Jackson and James Dolan agreeing to part ways. More of Phil just getting fired, and a lot of other stuff to cover. Alex, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm got Sox tickets tonight. I'm sitting in the Green Monster for the first time I've ever sat. I've ever at Fenway Park. We actually were.
They're gonna have a monster in the Green Monster.
Yeah. Wally will be up there too. Yeah. And you came to Fenway for the first time on Sunday. What were your thoughts?
You know what I realized about going to ballparks? Like, they're all like, each of them are unique in their own way. And I liked Fenway a lot, but at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of similarities between a lot of them. Obviously, the historical aspect, the Green Monster, pesky pole, and the concourse being small and historic, the area around it. It was all awesome. It was a sick experience. But like, it was definitely a lot better than AT&T Park, which are the top. I've only been to 11 now. Two that are really like close to each other for me, and Fenway's a little above it. But there are parts of AT&T I think I liked a little more too. But that's the thing about baseball parks. Everything's like so different as opposed to going to basketball games or football games, or stadiums are a lot more similar.
Yeah, I'm biased. I think Fenway Park's the greatest venue in sports in general. It's only like 38,000 seats. I think if you're sitting on the third baseline, you got a great view of the Prudential and Hancock Building. Green Monster is another great view. It's one of the more unique aspects of any park in baseball. The triangle, everything, just the concourse, the old seats. I like it. I think it's a quaint park. It's historic, and you get that feeling. And you know, we were talking about this on Sunday. I hate John Henry. I hate Larry Lucchino. I hate Tom Warner. But one thing that they have done besides win 3 World Series championships in their tenure is keep Fenway Park restore Fenway Park in a way that didn't take away from the classic feel, but still made it more modern. And it was right on that line. You know, the new monitor out in center field, a few of those new monitors, the new luxury seating, the seats on the Monster, obviously. Just a great ballpark, a good atmosphere, not what it used to be, but still a good atmosphere for baseball.
A good weekend too, honestly, going out. I didn't realize Boston was as small as it was. It was the first time I was over there. The drive home was very quick. It was only 5 hours. I booked it home, and it wasn't really bad besides the GW. But, I mean, it was all in all a great weekend. Let's get into it. So the biggest Woj bomb of the week so far, NBA free agency starting Friday. I can't wait. Midnight. We got Summer League starting on Sunday. It's so much basketball in the offseason, so much to look forward to try to make us forget about how bad the playoffs truly were. Chris Paul going to Houston. Trades that I would just like, or big like rumors that I would see around, and I would just think, oh wow, okay, yeah, this will happen. Just like LeBron and everyone else going to the Lakers, Chris Paul will go to Houston. I thought of him either staying, Spurs, but ultimately I thought him staying was the priority. I really figured that LA would try to just keep him, maybe let Blake Griffin walk, but keep Chris Paul. If there's no Chris Paul, there's no playoffs for Houston. And by that, I mean there's no team that's winning over 50 games that's going to be like a top 4 seed. They let him go. To me, symbolizes that they're going to, or at least they should, blow it up from here. But I thought he was a decent guy by opting in, making sure that they got something for him. And that's a pretty big return for a guy that was on his way out anyway. Pat Beverly, Sam Decker, Lou Williams, a first-round pick, Montrezl Harrell. They got a good amount of solid guys. I really thought, hey, maybe they can keep Chris Paul, keep Blake Griffin, or let Blake Griffin go, keep DJ, maybe sign Melo or trade for Melo, maybe put them above that step. Because, Alex, you look at this team. Anyway, Chris Paul wasn't getting any younger. Blake Griffin looks like the prime of his career has already ended, or he's at the very end of it. And DeAndre Jordan's good, but a pick-and-roll center with no offensive game, how much is that going to really carry your team? I thought they would acquire another somewhat of a star and try to keep this core together for as long as they can. Now it's all over for LA, and I'm excited for Houston. They got Paul, they got Harden, And those two guys together, those two, in my opinion, two top 10 players on the same team. Houston now is the third best team in the league. And I think unless it's another huge choke job losing to the Spurs, I think we're looking at them to make the conference finals.
Yeah, I'm not that crazy about this trade, to be honest. They trade away half their roster to get a guy that I don't think they really needed. If you're talking about priorities for Houston, I don't think point guard was one of them. I think part of the reason they were so good is because James Harden played the point extremely well. And Chris Paul is going to make any team better. He's a great player, but is it worth trading 7 players in a first round pick for this guy when, it doesn't make you all that much better? For me, it doesn't put you over the hump. They're not going to beat Golden State. They might not even beat the Spurs again. Who knows? I mean, Harden choked there. Who knows what Chris Paul will do? I'm not that crazy about it. I think I'm in the minority here, but this isn't going to help them beat Golden State. And they got rid of a lot of players in the process. I don't know. You have Mike D'Antoni, who's a great offensive mind. You got to think he's going to make it work with whatever roster he has in front of them. And they are a great offensive team, but they lost a lot of guys that were contributors. Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams wasn't that great, but a lot of these guys, I think they could have kept or could have used in a different trade. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know who else they would get, but it seems like this was a move that was made because they are succumbing to the pressure of their superstar. James Harden wanted this deal to be done. I don't think this was necessarily something that the Rockets were like, we got to go get this guy. I think this was simply them being like, listen, we have James Harden. He is our future. Do what we can to make sure he stays happy. And if that means bringing in Chris Paul and giving up all these assets, it's not going to make us worse, and it keeps our number one asset happy, our number one guy happy. I don't think this was completely necessary. I think this was just simply 2 players who wanted to play together, and they were good enough to pressure their organization to making it happen.
I love the move, honestly, because I used to think, like, when I saw reports, like, why are they doing that? But then I really started to think. Last year, he played point guard, MVP candidate, and they had a great record. He demolished the turnover record. He turned the ball over a lot. This is going to be a more polished offense now with more spacing. They're going to have more swingmen around the perimeter. On this floor, Chris Paul's never had this much spacing in his life. And now I understand the other confusion because both of these guys had some of the largest usage rates in the NBA. Chris Paul will be handling the ball more, but when I noticed when watching him play in LA and whatever, they had 2 point guards out there together a lot when we were there. You saw it, I saw it, and it worked out all right for them. So I just think, okay, they're going to have nothing but shooters around Chris Paul and Clint Capella, who's his new DeAndre Jordan for pick and rolls. Chris Paul setting a screen for Harden, Harden setting a screen for Chris Paul. These guys are going to have options. They're going to have so much space to score. I think it's going to be a really good fit, and they'll be taking care of the basketball more, and it gets them another great defensive point guard. So maybe when they have to go up against Golden State, Chris Paul can get that chance that he never got on the Clippers to play the Warriors in the playoffs in a round like against this Warriors team.
They're not beating.
Yeah, but I just want to say the whole giving up thing. Besides Pat Beverly, they didn't give up much.
No, they gave up a lot of scrubs, a lot of young guys who might become decent players in the NBA, but they haven't proven anything yet. And that first round pick, which won't be, will be in the 20s, late 20s probably. But this doesn't put them over the top. They got, how old's Chris Paul now? 33?
He's 32.
32? So you got a point guard who's in the back 9 of his career. With obviously one of the best players in the NBA in James Harden, who's in his prime. But by the time the Golden State run is over, by the time they let anyone else win, Chris Paul's not going to be a contributing factor. He'll be 35, 36 years old. And maybe these other guys, a Sam Decker or Kyle Wiltshire, probably not. But I'm not going to get too hung up on trading those guys, but this isn't gonna. I mean, this isn't gonna put them over the top. And this is, again, this goes back to the major problem with the NBA. This isn't gonna get them to the NBA Finals, and by the time they're ready to get to that point, Chris Paul won't be a factor. He won't be that good. He'll be coming off the bench, or he'll be, a mid-tier point guard in the NBA. So it's a nice move. It will sell tickets. It will sell jerseys. It's not going to get them to the finals.
Shouldn't you appreciate this, of all people, talking about the lack of parity? One team who accepts, all right, we're not even close to rebuild mode. We've got a top 5 player. Let's do whatever we can to win now and bring whoever we can that will help us win.
But it's not going to work. I can acknowledge that's all good. They're going for it. I respect that. But again, I think that a lot of it was because they were pressured into it from James Harden, and also they still have no shot at beating Golden State. This team isn't good enough. You look at the roster; they're not good enough. They're not even better than the Cavs. They're not, and they might not even be the second seed in the West. They might be. They probably will be. They're probably the likely favorites for that number 2 seed. But you never know who the Spurs will add. And speaking of that, the one good thing this did do is it kept Chris Paul out of San Antonio, which was a possibility. So it's kind of like
why is that a good thing?
It's good for Houston. They don't have to. They have a step above the Spurs. Might not be good for the NBA, but Houston. They're in-state rivals. They're direct competitors in the West. It's good that they're keeping Chris Paul out of San Antonio, and they've got him now, and also dismantles this Clippers team. Blake Griffin's not coming back. I'd be shocked if they even want to sign him.
I think they're trying to. I think that's their main goal. ESPN reported that yesterday. I don't know.
Why would they? It makes zero sense. You don't have Chris Paul. What do you expect to be any better? Not like,
dude. In my opinion, I think they should blow it up. I thought they should have traded Suns and get some assets for him there, and let Blake walk. You got your stuff from him, but they've got a few guys to put on something passable on the court to make them win. Who knows? Based on if they have DJ and Griffin, but they have a passable team. But they should be rebuilding. They should be respectfully rebuilding, but go all into maybe being 8th seed and then lose in the first round. Maybe Chris Paul. Who knows? That's not. I'm just excited to see the playoffs more exciting in the West than those later rounds. Another team that's a real top-tier competitive team because before you're like, oh yeah, the Rockets are having a good year. Let's not forget the year before that, before D'Antoni, they won 40 games. See, now they won like 50-some, like I think 56 or 58.
Here's the thing. The Clippers are not going to be good. They probably won't even make the playoffs in all likelihood. The Jazz, who they were the 5th seed, they're probably going to lose Gordon Hayward. The Spurs, if they trade LaMarcus Aldridge, even if they don't, they're taking a step back next year. I don't expect them to get any better. It's essentially the Rockets and the Warriors in the West.
The Spurs are still there.
The Spurs are still there, and
nothing changed. Kawhi was hurt, and that's why they lost the Warriors. They would have given them a much better series.
All right, but I don't think they're getting any better next year. That's my main point. So you have 3 teams who are decent, who are good in that conference. Only one team that's going to come out of it in the Golden State Warriors. So it doesn't really change on that front. I think the West is probably going to be overall top to bottom a little bit weaker. Maybe even like the Timberwolves could be like a 6 seed. Who knows? A 5 seed. With their roster next year.
You see Jimmy Butler was coming out saying he's talking to free agents better than him. I don't know how many free agents better than him that he's talking to in from free agency, but who knows? It's got to be Paul George.
That's being fake humble. He thinks he's better than everyone. I don't know. Could be Paul George, not free agent yet. They'll probably have the cap room. Who are they? All their guys, their big guys
None of them haven't gotten paid yet, right?
Exactly. So they have them under control. But yeah, I think the West is taking a step back. I guess I'm a pessimist though. What do you think about the Austin Rivers favoritism angle that people have taken?
That's not true because Chris Paul doesn't seem like a guy that would lie about that. Chris Paul, in my opinion, is the most respectable guy in the NBA.
Isn't he the president of the Players Association?
I think that's Horford.
Is it Horford? It used to be CP3.
Pretty sure it's Al Horford. It was Derek Fisher before back in the day, and then it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, Chris Paul is one of the most respectable guys in the league, I think. He doesn't give a shit about anything. He goes out there, he tries to win, and he's a loyal guy to places where he is. If he gets traded somewhere or wherever, he's not going to be a scumbag when he leaves places. He's not going to burn any bridges. He's a good guy. So the fact that he came out and said that his son, I believe it. Let's face it, dude. Doc Rivers has done a terrible job there.
Is he a bad coach?
He's done I don't think he's a bad coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's an average coach. I don't think he's anything too spectacular, but you got to look at the job that he's done as president of basketball operations, giving his son a $35 million deal, who I'll give it to him, had a lot of improvements. I don't think you should be coaching your son in the league. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Why? I mean, you say it's not getting to you, but come on, it's your son. Obviously, you can't start him over Chris Paul, but you could favor him a little bit. And Doc, let's just look at his track record. He's been there since 2013. Well, yeah, they had that horrible collapsed against the Rockets that one year when they were up 3-1. It's been a bad tenure for him. And in my opinion, the whole Chris Paul talking about Austin Rivers thing, it's the cherry on top of the horrible job Doc Rivers has done. And now that he's gone, give it 2-3 years, Doc will be out. I guarantee you, Doc Rivers will be out in 2 to 3 years.
Well, we know he doesn't like to rebuild. That's, I'm still like...
And they have to. You lose a top 10 player in the league, you got to rebuild. I don't know what they're doing.
He's gone. Like, here's the thing. Like, when he was in Boston and they were getting rid of KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, and, of course, Jason Terry, Doc's like, yeah, I want out too, essentially. And I think it was kind of mutual a little bit, but I think it was more him wanting out than anything else.
That's the best thing the Celtics could have done.
It is. And look which team made it to the conference finals first. Doc Rivers is not that great of a coach. He is like a John Farrell type. I'm doing cross sports, but if he has a great veteran core with him, then yeah, they'll do well. That Boston Celtics team was awesome, and he was a good coach for that roster. But if it's not that, if you got some egos and you got some younger guys, and you're also the president of basketball operations or GM, whatever he is, on top of being the coach, you're going to be exposed a little bit. He hasn't done that great of a job.
I don't know why they gave him that role. I really don't.
I don't know what he did to even earn it. Because I mean, Danny Ainge is the one who assembled that roster for him in Boston. He never really. I don't know. That's another discussion. But yeah, I'm kind of. I think Doc has been exposed the last few years, and I agree with you. I think he's out soon. I don't think he wants to stay. He doesn't like to play for a team that doesn't already have a good roster. It's kind of a cheap way out, if you ask me.
It is. Give it 2 to 3 years. I'm telling you, Doc will be out. Check out our website. Quick break here. JonandLeboShow.com. Just launched a couple weeks ago. We've got some writers coming up soon. And yeah, just you go check it out. We have a few posts on there already. Podcasts will be up there. We're adding to it periodically throughout as the days go by. So make sure to go check that out. Alex, Phil Jackson finally got the can. Knicks fans got what they deserve. I just would start this off by saying, is there any organization out there that's possible of wanting to get rid of one of the most respected basketball minds ever than the New York Knicks? Is this not the most Knicks thing of all time to bring in a great like that and he gets run out? It's hilarious.
It's bad luck is what it is. It's not the Knicks' fault that Phil Jackson did a horrible job. Because you're New York Knicks and this is 3-4 years ago, and Phil Jackson's like, yeah, I want to come and help your team. A dude who coached Michael Jordan in the 80s and 90s, coached Kobe in the 2000s, like some of the greatest teams ever he's been the coach of. And he's like, yeah, I want to come in. I want to change things around. You're going to be like, I'd prefer you over James Dolan. And, he came in, and not that James Dolan was a basketball operations guy, but he came in and he got Kristaps Porzingis, although he would have gotten Jahlil Okafor if he had the chance. And he just did a horrible job, mismanaged everything. And he was his pride really did him in, from the contentious relationship he had with Carmelo Anthony. And it takes a lot for me to take Carmelo Anthony's side to, also kind of pushing out Kristaps Porzingis or attempting to push him out because, again, his pride got the best of him. He is he's stereotypical old guy, just an old stubborn guy who can't admit when he's wrong and is going to be too proud to take any advice from anyone else. And this is long overdue, if you ask me. My only question is, why wait until after the draft to let him go? You're going to let him make the picks for your team when the rating's kind of on the wall as it is. Why wouldn't you have people under him try to do this and get someone in there who, you know, is going to be there in the future instead of a guy who's on his way out and I think knew he was on his way out?
Maybe people were breathing down Dolan's neck a little too much, and it was too close to the draft to fire him, so maybe they just wanted to wait till after that. But here's my thing. You said bad luck. I think the Knicks are so much of a dysfunctional organization under James Dolan that when you're that dysfunctional for that long, what's it been, 5 years? Bad luck. And what I mean by that is, like, when you're that bad for that long with no, like, set plan, you know, like, it's you make your own bad luck after that. Like, what was Phil really like? I know there were a lot of moves that he could have made, whatnot, but what was he really, like, supposed to do? Like, is the roster really that much worse now than it was when he came in? Like, the Derrick Rose deal, like, drafting Kristaps was great. He's always been unreal when it comes to picking out prospects overseas and whatever. He is getting older, and obviously his knowledge of the game is definitely really not with the times as much anymore. But they got Kristaps Porzingis with him. That was good. But when he came in at the end of at the beginning of the 2014 season, and ever since then, 2014-15, they were worse than the Sixers. They won 17 games. And then the year after that, they took Kristaps, and they were still not as great. They were still pretty bad. And he just hasn't made a lot of good moves. But I'm just saying, is there someone that could have been there that could have been like more competent with all of that? I don't know. With all the stuff, how do you really expect a guy to win when you got the owner kicking out former greats of your team? You got the owner that doesn't even give a shit about the draft, playing with his band. Phil Jackson never stood a chance.
Well, he gave Phil Jackson free reign, I think. So I don't know if that's, you know, the Charles Oakley thing's unrelated. James Dolan playing the kazoo in his band on draft night is unrelated. I think Knicks fans want James Dolan as far away from basketball operations as possible, and, you know, give James Dolan some credit for listening and staying away from that team like he does with the Rangers. But, like, he made bad moves. I think the Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah trade was horrible. I said it at the time.
Noah was actually a free agent, which makes it way worse.
And he gave him a 3-year max contract, or 4-year max deal to a guy who was a 12-year veteran who was already breaking down. So stupid. Such a stupid move. On top of the you know, trading for Derrick Rose, giving up a guy like Robin Lopez, who since that trade has been better than Joakim Noah, and also the way he handled the Carmelo Anthony situation. He could have gone to Carmelo Anthony and been like, listen, we need to rebuild. This team isn't going anywhere. I can see it. You've meant a lot to this organization, and that deal that I gave you, I don't regret because you were worth it. He could have kissed his ass a little bit. But we want to go separate ways because it's better for the team. And if you don't want to waive your no trade clause, that's fine. But I want you to see my side of it, and we can decide where you want to go. And he could have involved him in the process and hand it much more delicately. But instead, he's like, nope, piss off. I'm Phil Jackson. I'll do it my way. And it's like honestly, you're gonna be that guy. That's not gonna work in today's game. And he thought that he could get away with it, and I don't know if it's tarnished his legacy as much as Knicks fans want it to, but it's definitely there. It's definitely something people will think of when Phil Jackson comes up, because this is it. That's his basketball career right here. Him getting released by the Knicks, getting fired, mutually, whatever you want to call it, mutual separation. That's it. That's Phil Jackson's last basketball move. That's the lasting image we'll have. But yeah, he did a horrible job. Now the Knicks need to still find a way to get rid of Melo. If you can't find a trading partner, eat his contract, and then go into full tank mode. That's what they have to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, but New York, the Knicks will not tank, because, you know, they're the Knicks. But also, here's what I meant to say. Not with James Dolan that he didn't stand a chance, but what Dolan's built. Not James Dolan literally. I'm talking about what he's built. The guy has created a losing culture in New York. Culture. Doesn't matter if he's with this band in Hawaii playing. He's created that. So they brought Phil in with hopes to change the culture up and to make it a winning culture. And obviously that didn't work. But I'm just saying, when you create something as dysfunctional as that, it's tough. Channing Frye called like the '05 Knicks that they should make a 30 for 30 for how embarrassing they were and how dysfunctional they were. Now, that's incredible to me. This team is. If Phil Jackson couldn't repair, obviously how he handled the whole Kristaps and Melo stuff was bad. But if he's not gonna change everything, I don't know who will.
Yeah, I agree. It's something needs to change. They need to get someone competent in there first. That needs to be the first order of business. But this is a good thing for the Knicks to get to move past this guy and try to do it their way. Another quick read. Calling It Podcast, my other podcast that I do. It comes out Mondays. We're also doing a special podcast. What we're recording tomorrow will come out next Monday. I'm going to Israel, so we'll have a podcast Monday even while I'm on the plane. It never stops. Podcast never stops. Follow us on Twitter at Calling It Pod, or Calling It Podcast, rather. Also SoundCloud. Make sure you subscribe there and on iTunes as well. Calling It Podcast presented by Snap Call Sports. John McEnroe. I don't know if you were aware of his comments this past week in regard to Serena Williams. Essentially, he was on a interview with NPR. I'm going to try to get it up in front of me right now. And he was asked about Serena Williams and her legacy specifically. And he was very kind to her. You know, he essentially said best female tennis player of all time. That wasn't good enough for the interviewer Lulu Garcia Navarro, who tried to fish for an answer that she wanted, which was that Serena Williams was the best of all time, or the best tennis player, period. John McEnroe decided to answer with logic, and I'll read that. So Garcia Navarro, someone to qualify. Some would say she's the best player in the world. Why qualify it? McEnroe. She's not. You mean the best player in the world, period? Garcia Navarro, yes. Yeah, the best tennis player in the world. You know why I say female. McEnroe, well, because if she played the men's circuit, she'd be like 700 in the world. He went on to say that he has a lot of respect for her and that in certain situations she would come out on top and she's capable of beating players in the men's circuit, but she just wouldn't match up with them. This led to a bit of a shitstorm, for lack of a better term. People were upset that he said this, that he acknowledged that she probably wouldn't compete very well against men. It kind of blew this story up. What was your take on this, John?
I thought there were a lot of it was really blown. It was blown out of proportion because I think a guy who grew up in a different time than now, I don't think he knows all the repercussions that would come with him saying this. Not agree with what he said, but also I think that the reporter was trying to get something out of him that they could. They think that they could based on his background. So the combination of the media overblowing this and the combination of McEnroe's background made me think when I first saw this, wow, now he's going on rants talking about stuff like this. But then when I took a look at it, that wasn't the case. So I just the media goes after a lot to get a story like this a lot, and it's sad.
I just think it's like it's biological fact that men are physically superior than women. Like, it's just like, if you look at athletics, look at every single athletic competition ever where there's anything measurable. It's men who hold the record for whatever that measurement is. You compare one thing he said when he went on the Colbert show is, there's no female player in the world that could beat Michael Jordan. There's no female player in the world that could play in the NBA. That's true. I don't understand why it's controversial to say something that's accepted fact. And I think we've gotten to a point where you can't speak honestly about things because, you know, someone's going to get offended by something because everyone, you know, instead of being logical, everyone's emotional nowadays. This isn't a controversial statement. It's a fact. It's a fact that she would not compete well in the men's circuit. She even said that a few years back. Serena Williams said, if I played Andy Murray, I would lose in 6 straight sets and probably within 10 minutes. And she acknowledged that the men's game is completely different, pretty much saying they're faster and they hit harder and all the measurable things that you can take for that side of the argument. It goes that way. That's just a fact. McEnroe then goes on a couple shows and he sticks by his comments, which I respect the hell out of. Do not feel pressured to succumb to this PC bullshit simply because a lot of people are getting really emotional and are super, you know, set on their opinion. I just think it's ridiculous. And Colbert doesn't help it. You know, I lost a little respect for him because he was being a pandering asshole on his show. You know, he's like, you said she'd be 700 in the men's circuit. Probably, yeah. And if he does believe that, why is that a problem? The guy is one of the best tennis players to ever live. Don't you think he has a pretty good idea of the game and of everyone's ability? He watches it a lot. He's commentated on it. But still, Stephen Colbert was trying to take that angle probably to please his audience. And it's just really sad that we've reached this point as a culture where you're getting offended over nothing. And also belittles the real problems. You know, this isn't a big deal, what he said.
Look, this is what it was for me. I looked at it and thought of it as something that it wasn't. And then I watched him in an interview. He completely and strongly stood by his statement. And people were trying to make something that he said that wasn't sexist into a sexist thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate him sticking by his point and moving on from it and trying to just, you know, let everyone know what he really meant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he let everyone know what he really meant in the original interview. I think he was pretty clear with what he said. I think it wasn't a controversial thing at all. It was his opinion. It was his opinion that Serena Williams probably wouldn't do very well in the men's circuit. And Serena Williams is on record as to agreeing with that. Then she goes on Twitter and gets all fake angry at John McEnroe because she's pandering too, and she's feeding into this bullshit as well. And it's just a cycle of people playing this victim card and just being like, you know what, he said this mean thing about me, and it wasn't even mean. He respected you. He said he respected the hell out of you, and you're the best female tennis player in the world ever. Not even in the world, ever to play the game. You're the best. But still, you have to take the thing that, you know, people are making a big deal out of and turn it into this bigger issue than it has to be. And it feeds into, you know where I stand on this, John. And I haven't really talked about this on the show, but like this whole microaggression bullshit, it's just like, I don't know. I don't like to be like the old man arguing about this type of stuff, but like, it's just honestly ridiculous. The point that we've gotten to as a culture is pathetic. It is pathetic. We have made incredible strides in all of these problems: sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, all this stuff in the past, 50 years. And obviously there's still a ways to go. There's still a problem, but this isn't a problem. Him saying this is not a problem. It's his opinion, and it wasn't offensive, and it wasn't meant to come at anyone. It was his opinion.
I can understand how it could come off as sexist, but then when you really, just the basic idea, the basic headline of that, like McEnroe says that Williams can't beat 700 men's professional tennis players. That's how you can think, wow, okay, there's probably other stuff that comes to us, and no one probably provoked them. Maybe from that headline, that's probably what it suggests. But then when you look down to the real facts of the whole statement and everything with it, it really wasn't bad.
It wasn't at all. Was not at all. No one, and that's another problem. No one really ever reads into it. They read the headline and then they have an opinion on not even the story, but the headline. And so it creates a shitstorm with a bunch of people who are offended at something they don't even know about. And again, it plays into the victim thing. Like I'm angry. I'm mad at this. I want my voice heard because my parents never really loved me. Like it's this whole thing that's just absolutely ridiculous. And just know that if you find that type of shit offensive, you suck as a person. You're just like, you're no fun. You're not a fun person. You take yourself too seriously. You read into things probably way too much. You're probably way too emotional of a person, and you probably play the victim card a lot. This isn't a problem. It belittles the real problems, and it really is just like it's the 24-hour news cycle epitomized right here. Just you got this thing. Just throw it out there, see if it sticks, and evidently it did. You want to move on to the segment we didn't care about? Yeah, you were quick to say yes. All right, let me start the timer. First one, Miguel Montero. He has been horrible throwing base runners out this season, and the other day was no different with Jake Arrieta on the mound. And instead of taking blame for not playing that well behind the plate, he blamed his pitchers. What did the Cubs do? They cut him for being, quote, a bad teammate. Theo Epstein had a long quote on it. What are your initial reactions to that?
I thought it was hilarious. How many bases did Trey Turner steal? 7?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, my God. That's so funny. Look, just it was a bad day. I think he got designated for assignment, right?
I think he did get DFA'd, but
I mean, come on. That's so hilarious. I mean, just clearly one day isn't going to be the whole reason as to why someone gets called down. He's been bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's media 101. It's interviewing 101. It never blames someone else for something, even if you believe it. And that's essentially what Theo Epstein said. He said, we want guys to take blame when they're talking to the media, even if they aren't to blame. That's what being a good teammate is all about. Instead, he deflected the blame. And it's just selfish. It shows where your priorities at. I get why they fired him, and I kind of respect the move, to be honest. Next, Hayward. Gordon Hayward, that is, meeting with the Jazz. He's meeting with the Heat and the Celtics.
Yeah,
where do you think he's landing?
I think he's going to stay. If there's anything with Gordon Hayward, based on the stories I've heard about him, I've heard that he's a very loyal guy. And I get being loyal would be going, because that's why he went to Butler. I think I heard this on the Ringer podcast. Titus was talking about how, because he grew up in the same town as Hayward, how with Butler, because Brad Stevens was the one to recruit him first. So I guess that would be being loyal if he were to go to Boston to play with Stevens, the guy that hired him in the first place or that recruited him. But if he were to stay with the Jazz, that would be him staying with the team that drafted him as well. So I do think it's going to come down to the Jazz or Celtics, or if Pat Riley pulls something out of his ass to get him to the Heat because he can get any free agent he wants. Those three teams, it's like going to be like the Bermuda Triangle, but I ultimately think he's going to stay.
You don't think that the Celtics, if they were like guaranteed to sign Paul George, they were like, Gordon, we signed you, we're getting Paul George, and we also keep next year's Nets pick, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Why wouldn't he do that? That would probably be a top 3.
I'm not saying it's a bad landing spot. I'm just saying, look, the Jazz also have something great on their own, and they might trade for a guy.
Yeah, but if
a team that's on the come up, and you're the best player, you're the main man, you're the guy, it might be appetizing to stay there with a great coach and great team that's established themselves in the league.
If the Celtics had Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and next year's Nets pick, along with the starting 5 of IT, we'll say Hayward, George, Horford, whoever, then I think he'd choose that over the Jazz. It's just a way better setup. And honestly, with the exception of the Golden State, that would be the best setup in the NBA. Next, Houston. They're pushing for Paul George, kind of, but I don't think they're going to get him. Where do you think Paul George is going to end up?
I would love to see him in Houston with those guys. That would make them a true super team. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade him because I think it will be hard because this is a weird situation where you don't just think a guy might not stay. You know he's going to leave, or you're like almost 100% certain that he's going to leave. So it's a tough situation because the Pacers are forcing trade offers, and it's tough for them to trade because other teams know that he's not going to be there. So it's a battle of leverage, and at some points the Pacers have it, at some points other teams. So I don't know. I don't even know when a move's going to be made, but they got to get it done soon. I could see Houston getting him. I think it's more realistic to say that Boston would get him. But if they find a third team and a trade partner, either Cleveland or Houston or Boston all look realistic. But I would say if Houston figures it out, which Daryl Morey would, and he figures stuff out fast, it could be them.
I think the most likely thing, if he does end up in Houston, or if Houston plays a factor, it's simply James Harden and Chris Paul being like, listen, you go, like, you're coming here next year. Like, we're going to have our big three here in Houston. And what that would essentially do is it would ruin any chance the Celtics have at signing Paul George for an extension, which would probably ruin any chance for the Celtics to even take a chance on trading for him. I think that's, if Houston plays into it at all, that's what it would be. But, you know, the closer we get to July 1st, I'm thinking that Paul George, Gordon Hayward to Boston is a realistic possibility. Next, Clinton Portis, former Washington Redskins great, almost murdered a guy. He was very open about it, very candid, saying this was no beat him up. This was I'm going to murder you. And he had one of his friends talk him out of it. Essentially, his manager lost $10 million of his money. I think that's understandable. You wanted to murder someone who lost all that money lost all of your money. But very candid. And fortunately, we didn't have another Aaron Hernandez on our hands.
Yeah, I'm not going to justify murdering, but I'm just going to say that that guys.
I just did, didn't I?
guys, guys all the time really get screwed over by people like this. If guys like grow up in bad areas, don't really know too much about money. I don't know about Clinton Portis' background. All I'm saying is, sometimes it's tough for guys like this, and I could see how getting angry over that amount of money could really mess with the guy's head.
He also was not the best spender. Like he did have frivolous spending habits. You know, he was someone who was very flashy with his money. So he is partially to blame for the fact that he filed for bankruptcy a few years ago. But it's sad whenever you see an athlete who has all that money lose it, and especially when they're football players and they're losing their mind at the same time. It's always a depressing thing. Last one, Lou Williams coming at the media, calling them nerds. I hate when athletes do this. It's never a good look. And it's just so stupid. Like, you got to know better than to do that. You're not going to bring good attention to yourself.
Yeah, there's just no good that comes out of it. I mean, yeah, it's no secret that players hate certain members of the media. That's just a fact. But at the same time, I mean, like, you can't just come out and say stuff like that. You're going to get so much backlash, and it's just really not worth it. Like, have your own thoughts on the media. It's not like a huge issue in sports. The media helps make sports what they are today.
Yeah, and the reality is there are a lot of members of the media who know a shit ton about sports and are good at analyzing it, and they'd probably know it as well as some people who are in the sport. Maybe not that much, but they know enough of it to have credibility. But he just dismisses all of them, and it's just silly. Like, your career, you haven't been that good. You're getting shat on a little bit by the media. Take it. Play better. You don't want that. Play better. Don't just come out and lash out against the people who are somewhat responsible for your popularity. Absolutely not. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Jon and Lebo show. Leb, have a good time in Israel. Make sure to check out our website, jonandleboshow.com, for all of our stuff. And follow each of us on Twitter. The show's Twitter at Jon and Lebo Show. And we'll, yeah. I'm at Alex_Lebowitz. And we'll see you guys next time. What's your Twitter? You're not gonna J_Cyclop. We once worked with a guy who tried to be never mind. I'll say that story for another time. No. Tried to be what? I used to know a guy that was trying to build something that wanted to keep his name private, and I just thought, like, that's just not smart if you're trying to market yourself for people to not know your name. But anywho, we'll see you next time. All right.